Welcome everybody. Hi Mom, how you doing?
Hi, Alexander.
All righty. Well, for everyone that's tuning in for the first time or for the return viewers, welcome back to another episode of Roots. For those that are new, Roots is a series of conversations between my mom, myself, and our family to understand our history, to understand our present, and to link the two with an intent to connect us in a way that's even stronger than before. So,
So
Mom,
far,
hi.
just me and you, but hopefully eventually we'll bring in family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
How you doing today, Mom?
I'm doing well. Yeah, Florida is nice and sunny as always.
That's good. Awesome. Well, we have had a good number of episodes, a good handful at this point, and we are continuing the journey and the story. For those that have, for those that are tuning in for the first time, I highly recommend going back to the other episodes and checking out the conversations that have been had up until this point. But as a quick recap, we've done the whole instance of growing up with my mom, what her family was like, what her mom and her dad were like, up until the point where the communist regime of Vietnam took over. We had an incredibly harrowing story about like what my mom and her family went through in order to escape, the plan that escape, and the escape itself, which was just an absolutely eye-opening, just and I could only just sit back and just listen to it all as you were describing it.
Aren't you glad that you born a generation later?
Yeah, absolutely, definitely very thankful for that as a result. But now we are at the point where we're at the refugee camp. Mom and her family has finally touched down, solid ground, no pirates. This is good. And now we play the waiting game. And it's interesting to me because we live in an environment where it's like you can always do things to be proactive, to how do you solidify your chances at the next step. What do you do to continue to succeed? And outside of surviving day in and day out, and making sure that you have the right resources for the next step, there's nothing else you can do except wait and survive.
Well, when atrocity comes, like, if you suddenly have a flood or a mudslide like California, or a hurricane like Florida, it's not much you can do. It's not up to you to control, except control your own fear. They have to wait for the representative from a different country to come in and to set up, and United Nations, Red Cross, any of the other assistant neighboring country. It takes time. So all of those are happening. What do? We just wait, and we gossip. It's like who's who's get called, who's go, who knows who die in the ocean. Did you hear anything about home? There's just a lot of. There's no Facebook, there's no radio stations, no TV news. So a lot of them were just word of mouth. Like people just came and then will bring us like what happened in Vietnam, and people who's been around have been maybe contacted to their family in different part of the world, and waiting for letters. They're waiting for the letters every day. You just go and stand in line and hoping that you can make a connection to your loved ones in any part of the country, even in Vietnam, because mailing a letter, they didn't have a post office there. There was nothing. So the waiting game is the name.
But knowing you and knowing my grandmother, you guys aren't just sitting there with your twiddling your thumbs. You guys are doing what you can to stay resourceful, to
we saw opportunity.
make sure.
We saw opportunity of how to earn money to survive, because even though we still survive some of the stuff that the pirate did not take, which my mom was really skillful, and she hid a lot of valuable stuff inside the garments that we were wearing. So we survived that, but we know that those are the things that we should never touch, because we didn't know that if we get settled in resettlement into a different country, if we have emergency, where we're going to get money from, we don't know anybody to borrow money from. So everything is absolutely until like life and death situation. So we didn't touch anything that we still, we still intact in our garments, our clothes. So what my mom and I did is we saw the opportunity and take action. You see opportunity, but you also need to take actions. So we feel like we were the only gig in town. You know about your grandmother, right? My mom is super, super friendly, and she's very approachable, very friendly. So people like her. A lot of women, find a way to talk, and she speaks Vietnamese and Chinese, and I did too. I spoke several. So, I mean, it was and I watched my mom, how she interact with people all my life. So I was pretty much comfortable being her friend's friends. And she's my friend's friend. So, I mean, we were doing all ages. And between me and my mom, people just love us. They come and they share stories, and they complain about, their family issues, things, they share their joy about they get a letter from their relative. So we are the source. We're almost like the hairdresser that everybody loves to come and tell a story. It's like,
I see that. Yeah. I mean, my grandmother very much has that that like level of approachability, and I definitely see that in kind of like you've definitely kept some of those stylistic nuances, which I think is very cool.
Yeah, so and I'm friendly too, and I can be friend with anyone, and I find a way to consult them. It's like, if we always get a lot of empathy to people, and and we can make them pretty. So what's not to like?
Totally, yeah. I get you. So you and I think the other interesting thing here is that my assumption is that a large portion of this activity it taught you a lot of entrepreneurialism that you then later used to your advantage when you were, quitting work, starting your own business and all that stuff, right? Could you tell me a little bit about just kind of like, because
so this is the extent of it. This is like, but I have been trained by my mom since like, oh my God, 8-9 years old. And I want to tell you something, that even in Vietnam, we were pretty comfortable. I don't want to say rich, but not too many people in Vietnam have refrigerators or have amenity like we had. So we had refrigerator. And for my mom, she's always frugal, and she's always find way of making money, small money. It doesn't, I mean, she's not like a big entrepreneur, but she's really good about making small money. So even when we were in Vietnam, we will sell ice cube. Anybody come with a mug, and we will sell ice cube to them, because we have the refrigerator, we can make ice, and they don't. I mean, the whole street, maybe 10-15% people who have refrigerator, and we had them, but it's like we keep making ice, and people just come with a mug, and we'll get like 5 cents, 10 cents, or whatever. Even in Vietnam, when I was little, my mom's always like, because she was trained when she was little, she even have a food stand in front of her house and selling things, because she come from a very hardship background. So when she married my dad, she carried that same thing. It doesn't matter how comfortable or how much money she has, she always looking for way to make more money. And she's always saved. Like if she have $9, don't even try to ask her for that money, because she'll find that extra dollar to put it to equal a 10, and she was tuck it away for saving. So I watch her all my life. And even in Vietnam, I sewed for all my cousins. I went to take sewing class, and I end up sewing for all my cousins, my friends. And then my aunt would give me money. Like New Year, I would make a lot of outfit for them. So I already adapt my mom's entrepreneurship. I mean, believe it or not, that's entrepreneur, right?
Totally.
You're making
Absolutely.
things for money, even though it's your relative. Because my aunt just adored me, and she's like, "Oh, I got 3 daughters," and and they need new clothes, and you're good at it. Why don't you make for them, and then I will pay you. So that is a form. That was a form of business that I didn't even know when I was that young, like 12, 13 years old. I already made clothes, embroidery. I would do anything just because my mom was always doing that.
It's interesting because do you feel like this was also a way for you to exercise like your social chops, like your ability to like be more comfortable in front of people versus like the home dynamic, like with like how there was, like you were talking about how there was like fear when you were, you know, tiptoeing around your dad. Like they're very different dynamics, you know?
It is, isn't it? I mean, at one side, I was so fearful of authority. On the other side, I was super friendly. I can talk to anyone. But I think I feel more comfortable, people at my level or women. I was just being, because my dad had been so strict with me. And he's such a, you know, authority figure that make me fear of authority, because his training and her training, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I'm still, now I feel a lot better when I talk to men, but back then I was so afraid of men for some reason, because they're almost like it's representing my dad. You know, especially middle-aged men who has authority. Somehow I would just, all I see is my father.
So that was just like a level of conditioning that like unconsciously was lifted when you know you were in your element and being comfortable. Do you think that was like a really big calling card for you when you know when you left Merck and you were like, well, what do I do now? Like, did you go back to this because it was like a place that you were very comfortable
I was always
with?
just want to say that I think, you know, my business, I love to cater to women because I'm more comfortable with them. And in the decorating world, most of the time, you know, women's are the one who is leading the project. But I was surprised a lot of time I deal with men too. But I want to go back to the point that, you know, certain time that when I deal with authority, when I get out in the business, I start talking to men and I'll still get that nervousness. And then certainly, I think when I was like approaching in the 40s and the 50s, and I start to think, wait a minute, that guy is actually younger than me. Was only maybe a few years older than me. He's my peer. Why do I afraid? Why do I think about my dad? You know, why do I feel like I'm afraid of the authority and he represent authority? And I just like, you know, a certain time I'm looking, I was like, this is so silly. He's about my age. But that guy was even younger than me. But because he looked like a middle-aged man, he intimidated me in a way, not because they intimidate me, but I feel intimidated. It's just because I still couldn't get, you know, I still couldn't cross my dad's.
Those unconscious biases are so strong. They're so incredibly strong. Wow. And then it's so cool to see that the other side of that, like the other part of you was able to just like have that click at some point. And then have that be the driving force for essentially your next stage in your career.
Right. And that, I think, you know, with anyone who had a fear, who has a fear, just have to step back and think about how silly it is. You know, I just, and not just one time, but a few times I'm start to think, you know, when I'm conversing with a man, and then I got intimidated and I got nervous. And then I'm, you know, out of a sudden, I'm just like, wait a minute. Think about this guy, just like, you know, my age, when he was my age, or when we were teenager, he's about my age, or he's younger. He's like my little brother. Why should I be afraid? So I put that image on my head, and consciously I step back and I say, you know what? I'm going to treat him like my peers instead of my superior.
That's awesome.
And
that honestly, that's as it should be, because I mean, like, you are the person in the room that has like, now you are the one that has experience. You are the one that people can look for to advice. And it's very difficult to paint yourself in that way because of like these subconscious perceptions. But once you let that go, it's a whole new ballgame. That's really interesting.
And when I put down the guard, I feel relaxed and I feel like, oh my God, he's actually a very innocent guy. He needs guidance. Well, I'm much more experienced and like in business or in things. And when I put that down, when I relax, then I feel like, oh my God, I am just putting myself in a position of fear for very irrational reason.
Yeah. Well,
So
it's interesting because like we can pinpoint, or not pinpoint, but we can point back to where this stemmed from.
yeah.
But like when you look at it in just that specific context, it definitely is irrational. But we're digressing. I think it's
No, it's okay because it did help me. I mean, back then, at the refugee camp, and it helped because the business that I did is
yeah.
mostly catered to women.
Okay.
And that gave me a sense of confidence in a way that, because I know I can make a dialogue with them, I can have a conversation with them and being
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
I didn't make any men's clothes, that's no men's. And I love dealing with, young or old, because we are friend them all. I mean, like we have a couple young girls that I'm friend with, and then their mom is my mom's friends, and then they become my mom's friends, and I become, it's just like it's almost like a sisterhood.
Sure. Yeah.
That you do in business is fun, and I love those extra networking. And that's why when I go out networking, I love that. I love the fact that be able to understand people's story, where they come from, and building relationship for me is like more important than exchanging a transaction.
Totally.
It's like you know me, your life, that how my clients become my friends. Many of them.
Yep.
They're
Absolutely.
more than clients. They are friend first.
That's really sweet. And I know that, having that come from a small business owner, it means so much more than, some corporate head from a multinational corporation trying to parrot
Right.
this information. But so, you were, you were doing what you could to survive, to get that edge, but it was just a waiting game. And at some point, I just want to, did you have any thoughts about just waiting and just,
Yeah.
like,
Worry. Just a lot of worry about, I mean, in the first 3 months, like I said, we were so busy building a small business. I'm not even called business. It's a temporary thing to buy the time to make some money. And because you can't do anything but wait, so you might just well using that time to do something. Just like I'm using COVID to write my book, to do a bunch of other things, because when you're sitting around, the day is so much longer. But if you do
yeah.
something, the day just passed by so much quicker.
Yeah, because I remember when we were having an earlier discussion about like what you were looking forward to doing, and when you got off the boat, you were just like, I can't wait to just get back to school, to get back into the learning environment.
Right.
So like this was really just like a lot of like easy wins for you, almost.
Yeah, I mean, so the first 3 months, like I said, I didn't think, I know I want to go back to school, but the opportunity for making money is outweigh. And plus, I didn't really look. But once we moved to the other island in area, things start to dawn on me. It's like, what am I doing here? Like I'm wasting all this time, not focusing on the main goal. So the main goal is to go back to school. Now, I don't know anything about English. So yeah, so I took action, and not a whole lot of learning, but at least something, because you don't have books, you don't have anything, so you just make do of whatever he teach you. He managed to get a board with some chalk. So I just copy, because there's no standardized book. So whatever the guy teach, but something's better than nothing, right? Because I didn't have anything. I really didn't have anything. And yeah, and it wasn't long. I mean, I probably learned English for maybe a month and a half. And then we got pulled to go to a different island. But
what were some of the things that that stood out to you there, that like I just like that I wouldn't know, or
depression. You get depressed because you don't know how long is away. It could be like that. You found your name on the bulletin, and you are done. Next week you'll be out. But every day is the waiting game. Every day is go stand in line. My dad would go stand in line and check to see if the name's on the bulletin board. And then
Wow.
it will come home, and then we was like, well, do we? You know, it was like, nope, not today. And every day
Man.
it's like looking for a lottery.
Yeah.
And it was really hard. And for being a 16 years old, and I passed my 16 sweets, 16. No, I've turned 17. I've turned 17 in the refugee camp. Am I? Yeah.
Mhm.
October in 1978,
Yeah.
79. So I turned 17. And I didn't even remember my birthday.
Oh man.
Nobody celebrate. But yeah, something it just like creeped through it, and I didn't even think of anything about my birthday. It was just a blur.
Mhm.
And I felt like 25.
Yeah, because you were going around, you were managing a small business, you know, you were doing a side hustle, getting money, you know,
Oh,
you
I'm
were at
just
the
always worry
university.
about everything, because we talk. Mom and dad's always talk about the concern. It's not like, you know, you shoot the kid out of the door and then you talk and then you worry. No, I mean, they argue, they talk, everything is in front of everybody. So everything that, you know, whatever plan, I'm the next one in line, and I just felt like I need to responsible for all those burden. And
Man,
because
did you never get sick of it? Like
I don't know, you know, this is something that, you know, I want to make an example. So people are allergic to chocolate, and then
sure.
you ask them, do you ever miss chocolate? They don't know what chocolate is. How can they miss chocolate? So if you ask me, do you ever get sick of it? I don't know what's sick of it. You know, I was growing up always like that. So that was
Mhm.
normal to me. So I did not know that what a kid's supposed to be. And so that was just like, you know, I didn't even know that what's outside that realm. So
Yeah, that's super.
you
That's I
never,
like perspective is so powerful there because like if I were to relate that to our family, like for instance with Emily, my cousin, you know, I remember that she would get frustrated very often about having to take care of Wesley and Megan,
yeah,
and having to be kind of like the older sister of the
right.
house, you know. I would get very frustrated around like, oh well, my friends are off going all doing all these cool things, and I'm stuck in here playing piano. This stinks.
And you get
You
frustrated
know,
when you were with Emily too, because you're older, and then we put you in charge of Emily and Wesley and Megan. That's why you didn't like to go to their place sometime, because you say that, you know, like I have to take care of all of them. You remember you told me that?
uh, I honestly don't. It
You
was so
didn't?
long ago.
But you know, sometimes when you go over there, it's like, well, I gotta take care of all of them. But
Huh.
because that's the mentality that where we come from. The oldest is always in charge of all the youngers.
Yeah.
So for me, that was just like air I breathe on. I didn't
Hmm.
even know what's the different or what's of sick of it.
Yeah. No, I
Um,
that's yeah, that's I and this is a recurring theme that I think is just coming back and resurfacing itself all the time. You know, it's just like that whole how did you not think this? How did you not think that? You know, what like and it's just because we come from two
yeah,
drastically different backgrounds
right.
that I mean, we keep running into it, but it's still very, you know,
So I
revealing to
am
me
so
each time.
glad. I'm so glad, because I just thought that you get it, because you're my
No,
son. You're supposed to get it.
are you kidding me? No way. I
And
grew up with a proverbial silver spoon in my mouth. There's
it
no
dawns
way.
on me that you're surprised about all of this. And every time you ask me a question, I felt like, oh my goodness. So I'm not doing a good job raising
No,
you,
I mean that's
understanding
I mean
me.
you did a fine job raising me. I think it's really just around, you know, we
Yeah,
were always so focused on just like us doing well,
yeah,
you doing well, me doing well. How are the grades? how was piano, how was sports, you know, whatever it
Yeah.
was. Just like make sure you're on the right track to doing well. We never had a chance to be reflective about our relationship, which I think is
And plus
why
you were
I
too
wanted to do that.
young to talk about
Oh
any of
yeah.
this. Yeah.
Yeah. I there's no way I would have gotten it if we had had this discussion when I was like 13. No
No,
way.
no.
Not gonna happen.
Right.
Um,
And that's why I'm glad that I didn't write the book when you were 15 or 13, because this book has been on my back for at least a decade.
mm,
But it wasn't time. It wasn't the right time.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I wanna I think that's a really great moment. And I wanna end this episode with, tell me about the day that, you know, your dad came home and he said, we're on the list. Like, you know, just tell me about like how that was like.
It's like, yay! But we never express it. I was like, oh my God, that's the next step. So you know that it's a refugee. It doesn't mean that you get a list and then you're gonna just like, okay, hop on the plane and be done, right? It's the next phase, because each time you move, you're moving up to the list a little bit. So we have moved from Lea Tran to Area, and from Area, they're gonna ship us to another bigger island with more refugee, and that's where they start doing your physical examination. So
Oh
I mean, it's just a slow steps. So you got to pass through all the criteria before you can hop on the plane. They got to make sure that you're vaccinated, you're Hep B or Hep C, not a Hep C positive. You have to have a clean slate of health. Everything's got to go through the process, and they have to background check you, like whoever you claim you were, because there's not a whole lot of document to back you up, and
yeah.
they can't really check and call Vietnam to check who you are. So
Yeah.
they're taking you, you know, by faith, but there's a lot of thing of watching and seeing the process. So when we would get the name to get out of Area, and we know that we're going to a different bigger island, and that island's, oh my God, yeah, it's
The next one
not,
after that was Singapore, right?
no. To Galang is a bigger island, and then
Oh, okay.
another island, and then Singapore.
Okay.
So that's all 5 different stations before we can actually get on the plane.
Uh-huh.
But we can talk about the next island the next episode, because when we get out of Area, and I finally took a walk with my cousin out on the beach, and go out with my friends for a little bit. And I start feeling like, oh my God, for the last almost 3 months, I did not even know what's going on at this island, because my dad was strict, so we're not allowed to go, but I can sneak out when he's not home. I knew
Yeah.
that I can sneak out. I'm really good at that, because that's the only way I can see things.
Mhm.
And I know that when you go to watch people play chess, I would just like, okay, you know, I get half an hour or an hour. So I told my mom's like, I'm gonna go walk by the beach and, you know, look at the island one more time, because I know that this is it. I'm not coming back to this island. And I want to have a little memory about the place that we stay.
Mhm.
So I walked and I took a swim, and, you know, I did a few little things with some friends that I had at the island. Some of the friends that actually from Vietnam, in the same boat, so we kind of know them. And so yeah, I did take a little leisure walk and some of the thing, and get super excited, not knowing that the next island, I don't care how bad, how good, as long as we move, that is progress. Every time we
Okay.
move, we know that we're getting a little closer to the airplane.
Yeah. And so you know what, I want to save that story for, you know, a future episode where, you know, tell me about the day where, you know, like you found out the date you were getting on your airplane, because that's a whole different thing. But um I think that's a really good place to end it. Um next episode, I want to get more into those kind of like other islands. I have some other questions as well, around just kind of like the attachment there and kind of like what you were fond of and what you were like, I'm never going to miss this again. So
And I
I
know that's temporarily. I mean, those
mhm,
islands, I mean, now I want to go back, and now it's probably very pretty if I go
mhm,
back. I don't know if we can get access to it, because it's basically a remote island. There's nobody live there. Some bushmen maybe
yeah,
only. And but you know, someday, I don't know. I still like to go to Indonesia, Jakarta, like some of the bigger city over there. And I know that people have gone back, but they really have to charter a boat and special people to take them there. So those islands are still not accessible. They're
true.
called the Nambas. It's like a string of hundred of islands that out in nowhere. So yeah, so that's something that I don't think I will ever see it again.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah,
But I think, the memory lives on. I want to talk about the rest of the island trips, in the next episodes. Um, and I think, to be able to relive that, hopefully we can pick apart some other little
okay,
tidbits of revelations or information.
yeah,
But yeah,
sounds good.
we'll wrap things up here. Thanks everyone again for tuning in. Hope you enjoyed this. Mom, any last words? You want to tell everyone about your book, and everything else before we sign off?
Yeah, so the book is called I Did Not Miss the Boat. And you can find you can find a lot more detail in the book, and maybe following us on what we're talking about. And if you have question, I guess that you can actually send it to us. And Alexander sure can ask me for it if you have any question.
That's an interesting thought.
Do
That's
we
a really
want to take
interesting
question?
thought. I like that. I think we could set aside a little time after each episode or at the end of each episode to go through maybe one or
Yeah.
two. That might be
Yeah,
fun.
so people can send the information to, do you want to send to you or you want to send to me?
Have them send it to you, and then we
Yeah,
can go.
so why don't you just do lee@leetran.com.
Yeah,
So
and on the
LEA,
and the episode link, we'll have the email address so you can.
okay.
Yeah, I think that'll work.
Yeah. When I post it on YouTube, I do have my contact information. But if you're listening on the podcast, so the email that if you want to, when you read the book or when you listen to the episode, that something that if you have questions, just send it to leatran.com. So lee@leetran.com.
Nice, awesome. Thanks, Mom.
Thank you,
Um,
Alexander.
all right, and thanks everyone else. Take care. Have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.